The Fort Erie Podcast with Brent Jones. Brent Jones starts now.
Hey, that is me. I'm Brent Jones. Hello and welcome. It is Tuesday, January 30th, 2024, and this is episode 81 of the Fort Erie Podcast. Coming up on today's episode, I know I'm a week late, guys. I know, but we're going to be talking about the Bills' loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to give you my hot take. For what it's worth, I'm going to give you my 2 cents on that game and how it unfolded. We're going to get to your Byrd Box calls, play the messages you left for the show. We're going to take a peek at Fort Erie questions and answers. And my guest today will be Fort Erie Fire Chief Mark Schmitt. Now, Mark is going to join us later. He's going to talk about fire safety. Of course, that's what the fire chief does. But Chief Schmitt and I, we're also both participating in something called Coldest Night of the Year. Now, if you've not heard of Coldest Night of the Year, I'm going to give you the synopsis. I'm not going to spend too much time on it right now because we'll talk about it more later, but here's the synopsis. Coldest Night of the Year is an annual fundraiser. It happens in cities right across Canada and the U.S. and probably elsewhere. It's an annual fundraiser intended to raise money for initiatives to combat homelessness, to help people, get people who are living on the streets, get them off the streets. It's a 2 or a 5 kilometer walk at night after dark. It's aptly called Coldest Night of the Year because it's planned, usually this year it's February 24th, but right around there, statistically, right around what would be considered the coldest night of the year on average. It's a little bit like Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, if you're familiar with that type of event, except we'll call this one the homeless edition. Now, Mark is leading a team of walkers for Coldest Night of the Year, Fire Chief Mark Schmitt. I'm leading a team of walkers, and our teams are both raising funds, and all the funds raised through the Fort Erie sort of branch, the Fort Erie Coldest Night of the Year event. All of those funds are being collected and donated to the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie. The Brain Injury Association, if you talk to those folks, they'll tell you a lot of their initiatives are helping to keep people who need support in our community, helping to keep them off the streets, keep them away from homelessness by offering them support to be able to live independently in our communities with brain injuries. I'll tell you more later about how you can get involved, how you can donate. My team of walkers, we have a goal. My first goal, first and foremost, is to raise more money than Mark Schmitt's team. But independently, my team of walkers has a goal to raise $5,000 or more. We could use your help, whether it's big, whether it's small, whether it's pocket change or a huge donation, doesn't matter. All donations are welcome. We're going to get into all of that today. All of that's coming up. But first, let's kick off with a sneak peek of what's coming up in this Thursday's brand new edition of the Fort Erie Observer.
Coming up in the Fort Erie Observer.
In partnership with the Fort Erie Observer, I'm able to give you a preview of what's coming up in this Thursday's edition. Coming up, some of you may know this already, but coming up in April 8th, 2024, there's going to be a total solar eclipse, and it's going to cross over North America, passing over Mexico, the U.S., and Canada. Well, the Observer is going to be covering this April eclipse and its effects on Fort Erie. The 2024 eclipse, this one coming up in April, that's going to be the last total eclipse to touch North America for 9 years until March 30th of 2033. So look out for a story on that. Also, the Fort Erie Lions. There's going to be a feature on what they've been doing for our community for almost 100 years, since 1927. Great example of a current fundraiser that the Lions have going on is Catch the Ace, which is happening at the Legion right now. Already discussed previously and coming up, my chat with Fort Erie Fire Chief Mark Schmitt, but the Observer is also going to be doing a feature on the Coldest Night of the Year walk coming up on February 24th in support of the Fort Erie Brain Injury Association. The Brain Injury Association is looking for sponsors for the event, and there'll be information about how you can participate. This is in addition to everything that's going to be covered today on the Fort Erie podcast. And lastly, there will be a story in this Thursday's Observer about what's called the quote-unquote Sodom Road curtain, the effects of lake effect snow, and why it's the case that the lake effect snow seems to be the worst along Sodom Road. Keep an eye out on your mailbox this Thursday for a brand new edition of the Fort Erie Observer.
Fort Erie Real Estate with Brent Jones, your friendly local realtor with RE/MAX Niagara Realty.
In real estate news, I have a hot new listing to tell you about here in town. It just hit the market yesterday. I'm talking about 3270 Evadier Road. 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, nestled in a desirable part of Ridgeway on a double lot. It's got an attached double garage with a double drive that would easily fit 4 to 6 cars. Some recent updates include a new furnace, new air conditioning, new water purifier, 12 inches of new insulation in the attic, an owned hot water heater, and a newer porch and back deck. Very private backyard. Really nice for entertaining. The seller is asking $499,900 and is expecting multiple offers. We'll be reviewing offers next Tuesday, February the 6th. For more information or to book a private viewing, look up 3270 Evadere online, or you can call or text me directly at 905-626-8826, 905-626-8826.
It's Fort Erie's answering machine, the Byrd Box.
Welcome to the Byrd Box. This is Fort Erie's answering machine. You can call in 24 hours a day, squawk about anything you like, and I'll play your messages right here on the Fort Erie podcast. I call it the Byrd Box because the last 4 digits spell BYRD, 289-599-2973. Now, this first caller did exactly that, called in for any reason, has some strong opinions regarding the retro donuts that Tim Hortons brought back. She's got a complaint. Have a listen.
There's much bigger things in this world than complaining about the new Tim Hortons, bringing back the old donuts. But they promoted their cinnamon sugar twist, and I'm just sad to say that, unfortunately, there's no cinnamon and no sugar on those twists.
The injustice of the whole thing. Look, I don't think she has to preface her complaint by saying there's bigger issues happening in the world. Yeah, there's war in the Middle East and all that. But hey, if you advertise a cinnamon sugar twist, I mean, it's right in the name, isn't it? Should it not have cinnamon sugar on it? I don't know. It seems like I'd be mad if I went through the Tim's drive-thru. I saw, look, they brought back the old school cinnamon sugar twist, and then I ordered one of them, and then I got no cinnamon sugar on it. It was basically just it'd just be a twist at that point. It'd be a glorified old-fashioned plain, I feel like. I might have to check this one out for myself. Yeah, you know what? Stay tuned. I'm going to see if I can grab one of these cinnamon sugar twists. I'm going to grab one from Tim's, and I'll do one of my world famous food reviews maybe at the end of today's episode. That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, we'll get to that a little later. Right now, let's get to another call, topical call. This is a message I got last week. I know it's about a week late, but this caller had some thought about the Bills-Chiefs playoff game. Have a listen.
Oh my goodness. Am I the only one? I get excited every year that the Buffalo Bills are just going to make it. I get so excited. I'm rooting for them, number one fan. And it just seems like yesterday's game was such a disappointment, especially the way it ended. But I feel like the Bills are the Leafs of the NFL now.
The Bills are the Leafs of the NFL. Yeah, you know what? That made me laugh because it's true. It's true. If you have the unfortunate circumstances of being both a Leafs fan and a Bills fan, you are just used to constant heartbreak and disappointment. But anyway, I have my own thoughts on that playoff game, the Bills-Chiefs game. And again, I know I'm about a week late here, but I'm going to give you my 2 cents for what it's worth. Coming up later in today's episode, I'll have a brand new edition for you of ranting and raving. So I'll give you my thoughts on the Bills. But for right now, let's get to my chat with Fort Erie Fire Chief Mark Schmitt.
Have something you want to squawk about? Let the whole town know what's on your mind. Call the Byrd Box at 289-599-2973. That's 289-599-BYRD.
Okay, joining me on the phone right now, I am speaking with Fire Chief Mark Schmitt. Chief Schmitt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me. For the benefit of listeners who may not be aware, how long have you been in firefighting? How long have you been the fire chief?
Well, I joined as a volunteer firefighter in the town of Fort Erie in 1992. So I'm in my 31 year. I volunteered here the entire time. I did do a stint in Mississauga Fire for almost 12 years as a career firefighter there, commuted back and forth. Still did the volunteer fire service here during that time. And then in 2020, the deputy fire chief for the town of Fort Erie was leaving to pursue another job, and I was the lucky candidate. So I took that role on in September of 20, and then in 22, Fire Chief Ed Melanson also took a job in greener pastures, if you will. So I was the interim fire chief for a period of time, and then moved or promoted to the role of fire chief in August of 22.
So that's fairly recent, and congratulations on that. I mean,
It is.
well deserved, really, because I have to imagine a 30+ year career as a volunteer firefighter. That I have to think that's not super common.
That is not super common, is correct. I think in the province of Ontario, they're probably putting the average lifespan of a volunteer at 5 to 7 years. So,
is that because some of the job can be so stressful and traumatic that it becomes very difficult for people to do after a period of time?
it has to do with a number of things. The requirements of training is one of them. Family life, jobs all have a impact on the amount of time volunteers have to give to the fire service. And jobs right now maybe not be, when you're supporting a young family in the town, jobs may be a little bit far and few between when you're looking for something that can support a wife and a child or two. So we have a number of people that work out of town, and that obviously when they're gone, it takes away from their ability to, respond to calls in the town. So there is some challenges with it. I would say that volunteerism and the workforce has changed slightly, and I don't want to blame it on COVID, but it certainly has happened over that period of time where the commitment to outside things is a little less, and the commitment to your family and being at home has grown, which is not a bad thing by any means for the family, but it does make it more difficult for us to recruit volunteers.
Well, let's get into some of that, the recruiting and the training involved, because I don't know if everybody in the town of Fort Erie is aware that our fire department is chiefly composed of volunteer firefighters. So what is the process like for somebody who goes, hey, this is something I'd like to be a part of? What does that whole process look like?
Generally, when we're talking about suppression, we recruit once annually. Usually we start to advertise at the end of July, the beginning of August. The job posting would be found on the town of Fort Erie's employment page. We do, if you follow us on social media, Facebook or Instagram, and I think we have one on X as well. My public education team posts a number of things on there, including when we're recruiting. So that process starts, early, mid to late summer, and then we go through a pretty rigorous program of basically there's four areas that they'll have to go through. So there's a written test. They come in, takes a little over an hour for them to do a written test. And then if they pass that, they move on to the next stage, which is an interview. They'll interview with, we call it speed dating, but it's 9 questions, and you move station to station. So each question is asked by a different person to the candidate, and the candidate is the one that moves to each new interview station. Works fairly well. If you're connecting with somebody, maybe it's a little bit disappointing because you're moving on to the next person to try and connect with them. But if maybe you had a bad answer, or you're feeling off of that person, you move on to someone that's brand new, and you get to start all over again. So it's an interesting process, and not a lot use it. We've had great success with it over a number of the years that we've been doing it. So we continue to do that. Once you pass through that stage of the process, we send you to something called the CPAT, so Candidate Physical Ability Test. And that's really just a process of physical exercises that the candidate has to perform. If it was for a career position, it's just over 10 minutes. They're expecting you to finish it in. We're just looking for a time in there. So ideally somewhere in the 15-minute range for a volunteer firefighter, but it can be on either side of that. Usually if it exceeds, 18 to 20 minutes, we'll usually decline the candidate and ask them to focus on that area and return the following year. And lastly, it's something brand new. It's a cognitive test. So it just takes a look at the candidates and how the job would fit with them, whether it comes to mental health or depression, dependencies, how you interact with other people, those kind of things. So those 4 stages gets us gets us to a candidate pool that we offer jobs to.
So it sounds like there's quite a bit in there to test both the mental and the physical aptitude of the candidate who wants to join. What is there a stage where if somebody is going to be sort of weeded out of the selection process, does it most often happen in the early stages? Is it the physical fitness piece of it? Where do you end up losing most people?
To be honest with you, it's the written test. Whether it just people don't have a great confidence in writing tests. Some, it's just they've been out of school for a period of time, and we've asked them to come in and do some English and reading comprehension and some math and some mechanical skills that they may not have used in a while, say since they left high school or college. Mm-hmm. So we do see we lose a lot of candidates in that stage. So we are looking to provide in the future some information for them to use as a study guide moving into the test so they can be a little bit more prepared. Again, when you're talking about the career fire service, a lot of people go out and spend some money to get some support when it comes to testing and interview skills. Mm-hmm. The volunteer side, usually it's, oh, that seems interesting, I'm going to apply to that position. And then there's this realization that there's a number of stages they have to complete in order to meet the minimum requirements to be a firefighter.
Well, let's assume somebody successfully completes all 4 stages, and what does the training program look like at that point?
It's our training program spread out over approximately 6 months. And it's evenings and weekends, not every weekend, and obviously not every evening, but several evenings and a couple of weekends per month. It's roughly 260, we'll call it 250 hours-ish. And at the end of each stage, so there's a firefighter 1 and a firefighter 2 component to certification. And at the end of each stage, they have to write a provincial test, and that will get them certification. Certification is a little bit new to the fire service in that in 22, the province released legislation. It's OREG 343. Which is requiring mandatory certification for every firefighter in the province of Ontario. So everyone has to meet the same standard, whether you're a firefighter in downtown Toronto or, you're a volunteer in Kincardine, it doesn't matter, or here in Fort Erie, you have to meet the same standard.
Interesting. Okay. And one of the little, you and I were joking before I hit the record button here, but something that I wish maybe more people understood is the green lights. The green lights for volunteer firefighters who are on their way to a call, are to be treated the same as when you see an ambulance with its sirens on, a police car, and then we, pull over because that person is on their way to an emergency situation. Is that, I have to assume I'm not the only person who notices that some people seem to, I don't know, either be oblivious to the green light or they don't know what it means. Can you speak to that at all?
I can. And then, honestly, if we're being frank, they're a little bit oblivious to the red and white lights as well. So
that's probably fair.
But the green light, it is considered a courtesy light in which it's not mandatory for other drivers to get out of the way of volunteers going to a fire. But think about the fact that it could be your family that's involved, and give them the courtesy by moving over so that they can make a quicker response time to the fire station. To proceed.
I think my bigger question to that is, where is somebody going that they're in such a hurry, somewhere that's so important that it supersedes a firefighter getting to a call?
It's a question for the ages right there.
Well, that's fair enough. One of the things I wanted to...
It truly is.
One of the things I wanted to commend you and your team on is I've seen a big push. You mentioned your social media channels earlier, and I follow you, I think, pretty well everywhere, Fort Erie Fire. You guys have been doing a great job, I've noticed, over the last few months of promoting fire safety, and especially as we were coming up to the Christmas holidays, here are some of the top causes of fires, here's what you should do. Is that sort of a renewed push for your team to say, hey, this is something that we need to put more focus on?
It's driven a bit by the fact I have a 17-member volunteer public education team. So generally in the summertime, because of the daylight hours, we do what we call the SAFE program. So They go into the community, they go door to door, and they just are asking the citizens if they can enter the house and do an inspection to ensure that they have a working smoke alarm and seal alarm. So by doing those visits, we get what we call a compliance rating, right? So I think the end of last year, we were somewhere around 32%. And when I shared that report with council and the CAO, I got a bit of a, should we be not sleeping so good at night based on that number?
Yeah.
So 32% of the people that we visited were compliant, meaning they had working alarms. The remainder were unprotected.
Wow.
Right. So that is a number that is scary. Now, I'm pleased to say through some additional efforts this year, a bunch of media posts, as you've already mentioned, we've been pushing fire safety in the homes a lot. That number is creeped above 50% for this year. So we are seeing improvements. The other piece, Brent, that we've been talking a lot about is emergency preparedness and the 72-hour kit.
Yes.
The town and myself have been pushing it pretty hard, just based on the fact that we experienced Elliott last year, the winter storm over Christmas. And, everybody was expecting a storm, but I don't think we're expecting what we got. So it really highlighted the fact that, we need to depend on our neighbors. We need to depend on ourselves to have, the medicines we need, food we need, the water we need, the things we need to get through through a 72-hour period. So we've been pushing that a lot as well. It's really important to have in your household. If you're a guy like me, I use a portable generator to run my house when we lose power. Make sure you're ready to have all that stuff. The oil is changed. You have gasoline for it, etc. If you've got a standby generator, have a basic understanding of how that works, because a lot of what happened last year was the air intakes or the filter were freezing up.
Yep.
And if you have some basic knowledge on how to either replace the air filter or thaw your carburetor out, you're going to be back up and running. So one of the things I've been kind of pushing more locally above what the bigger 72-hour kit says is that you have an understanding of your generator and a spare air filter for it, and also consider a couple 100 milliamp battery that could charge your cell phone a couple times, or your laptop or whatever, just so you can keep in better contact with the people that are worried about you. Because we did respond to probably several hundred, if not 1,000 wellness checks, meaning that I've tried to get a hold of my parents or my brother or sister or whatever it is, and I can't get a hold of them. Can you go over and check to make sure they're okay? So we did a lot of that last winter. So like trying to get people a little bit more prepared for what potentially is coming, and we're looking at a bit of a storm coming this weekend. Just to be a little bit more prepared for that individually.
Yeah, it's tough. Now, I love the push you've been doing with the emergency preparedness kits. There were the almost like the index cards that came out last year in the Fort Erie Observer. I've got one of those pinned up at home and in my office, and it's common sense stuff, but common sense isn't always so common, and it's nice to have that reminder of, hey, here's the items we need. The wellness checks, the volume of those is not, I can't say that's surprising to me. Cell phone towers went down. At least where I was in Ridgeway, there was no, we couldn't use our cell phones. Internet was down. There really wasn't a means to connect with the outside world, which made things very, very difficult. But, nice to know that, hey, at least we're supplied for 3 days in case we can't get out.
Yeah. And if I can, I would push people to go take a look at the town website under emergency preparedness. And there is an email chain that you can sign up for. And when emergencies arise, the town will push emails to you to let you know, one, what's happening, and what we are doing to try and, solve the problem. So I really recommend that people get on that list. We've had a huge increase in the amount of people subscribing to it. And it is one of the better ways to get hold of it. And I know exactly what you're saying. I live in the Ridgeway area too, and a number of our cars were in that area, and Ridgeway and Crystal Beach were hit very, very hard when it came to cell phone or your ability to connect with the outside world. So I understand that fact. we are trying to push people towards radio stations a little bit more. One of the issues, again, with Elliott is the radio stations weren't manned over the Christmas holidays, so we couldn't get real-time information to the radio stations quick enough to inform the community.
Right.
So we were unfortunately relying on getting it out on social media and then word of mouth to the rest of the residents, just so they knew what was happening.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, thank goodness that's behind us, and hopefully we don't have anything to that magnitude again anytime soon. I do want to talk with you today about Coldest Night of the Year, because that's something near and dear to both of us that's coming up here in the not too distant future, less than a month really from this point. But do you have any other events? I'll ask you first. Any other events coming up this year that you want the community to be aware of?
You know, annually we do a food and toy drive, which normally happens just before Christmas. So it's just recently passed, but that'll happen again in 24. And then again, our SAFE program, our public educators will be out throughout the summertime. They're out all year, but they'll be out hard through the summertime to get to residents, just to make sure that people are fire safe in their home. Okay. Really, those are the ones that are hitting me off the top of my head right now.
No, that's perfect. Well, let's jump into it then. Let's talk about Coldest Night of the Year. Because again, this is something that is meaningful to both of us. We're participating in this year, leading teams. For listeners who aren't familiar, maybe we can tag team this. Do you want to tell listeners a bit about what is Coldest Night of the Year?
Coldest Night of the Year is an event in which individually or as a team you can sign up to walk. Here in Fort Erie, they're promoting as a 2.5K, but you can generally do a 2.5 and a 5K. And it promotes a number of things. It can promote homelessness and all of those things. Truthfully, the event started around homelessness, but here in Fort Erie, it is related to homelessness, but it's also being run by the Brain Injury Association. So in a number of the activities that they do, it's a fundraising event for them. My wife worked in St. Catharines, and we did the walk there. And at that time she was working in homelessness. And it was a great support to the organization that she was working for at the time. That's what kind of made it near and dear to my heart. I lost my wife in 21. So, the ability to do something in her name, is part of the reason for the walk this year for me.
Yeah, it's initially began Coldest Night of the Year. That's why it's done on February 24th or thereabouts every year, because it is statistically, close to what the coldest night of every winter will be. And the idea is to assemble either individuals or teams on behalf of a company or organization, or just you and your friends. It really doesn't matter, but to come out and walk either the 2K or the 5K. The funds raised through Coldest Night of the Year this year, like the event in Fort Erie this year, are being donated to the Brain Injury Association, and they have a goal of raising $20,000 or more for their cause. The services that Betty Talbot and her folks at Coldest Night of the Year, like the work that they're doing, prevents homelessness in a lot of cases for people who are living with those types of impairments. I'm sure similar type of work to what your wife was doing, and trying to work with people who are in a potentially could be in a very difficult situation. And you're leading a team of I'll call them volunteers, walkers, people who are walking this year. I got a team I put together here. Is your team all based out of the fire station, or are these people are these people How did you put your team together?
Honestly, I have some coworkers on there. I have my girlfriend, my daughter's walking. The CAO is on the team. It's kind of just a mishmash of people that were interested when I originally posted that I was going to do it. So, yeah, not terribly organized, to be honest with you.
My team is the same. I think at the time you and I are talking, I have like 15 plus people who are going to be walking with me. And, I didn't limit it to, hey, you have to work with me at Remax, or, it was like, hey, anybody I know, I'll shoot you a text, an email. Do you want to join my team? Here's the link we can all share. We can collect some donations. And, I know obviously you and I are aligned in that sense. We want to raise a ton. What I love about events like this is it creates an opportunity to there's the old adage about a rising tide lifts all boats. I mean, where all the money goes to a good cause, goes to the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie, but it does create a bit of an opportunity for some friendly competition. And I was wondering, I think right now, looking at the standings, I think my team's ahead of yours a little bit. I didn't know if you wanted to make some kind of friendly wager, maybe here about, whose team was going to raise more dough. Well, I don't know. What do you think?
I'm interested, man. Let's talk about it. I'm definitely interested. Yeah, you have in the last week slid a little bit ahead of me. So it's good. I see that Turks and Lumber's got a team in there now, and a couple other groups have jumped on board. So it's starting to grow in some numbers. It's exciting.
Yeah, I find these things snowball, the closer it gets to the event date of February 24th. And if you're listening and you're thinking about, hey, I'd like to walk with, Chief Schmitt. I'd like to walk with you, Brent. I'd like to set up my own team. I'd like to walk individually. You can head over to my social media channels. I mean, I have the links posted there to the event. I'm Buy with Brent everywhere on social media. You can find it. You can sign up. You can walk. And it's not, this is not running a marathon. This is starting at Greater Fort Erie Secondary School, walking a pre-designated track, that's really it. I mean, dress warm, bring some water, that kind of thing. But, it's less than an hour of walking from 4 until 5 p.m. and there's food offered after. So it's really I don't want to call it an easy thing to do because it's not going to be easy for everybody. But, at the same time, it's something that I think is accessible to most people who want to participate.
I agree. It's, I think I've said I've done it before in the past, and it is a lot of fun. The before and after, warm up, and then the socialization afterwards with some food and warm beverages, just to meet some members of the community, and the efforts they're putting in to help the community is very good.
Well, you know what? We'll talk more about that friendly wager maybe offline here. What the losers team has to do. I was thinking of going extreme, something like losing captain has to shave their head, something like that. But I don't know. Maybe you already shave your head. I have no idea. So
I'm not far from it, but I do have hair on my head. So
okay. Well, I have a lot of hair. It's like my only claim to fame, really. Is there anything else, sir, that you would like to share with listeners before we wrap up?
I think we covered it pretty clearly, but I often find it important to remind the community that the firefighters here are volunteer, meaning that they do have a full-time job or a couple of part-time jobs that they attend to support their families, and this is something they do in addition to that. For many, it's a noble calling. I have a number of firefighters that are family-related. Many brothers involved, or brothers and sisters, so husbands and wives. I have a lot of them. The other key thing, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, I also have a volunteer public education team. So if riding on fire trucks and putting fires out or going to medicals isn't something you think you're truly interested in, but you want to be part of it, we also have the public education team that does a lot in the community, not only at events, but again, goes and can do door-to-door programs where they check home for fire safety issues. So there's a bunch of opportunities there. I don't think I mentioned we're 129 strong. I have 9 full-time people. So sorry, I'm one of those. So truly 8 full-time people, chief, a deputy, a training officer, 2 admin assistants, 3 in the fire prevention side of things, and a mechanic. So we are busy. There's a lot going on all of the time. But I think it's important that the public knows that the men and women that show up at your door when you're not having your best day, they're doing it because they love it.
Ranting and Raving on the Fort Erie podcast.
By the time you're listening to this edition of Ranting and Raving, we'll already know who's going to the Super Bowl on February 11th. But at the time I'm recording this feature, the big NFC and AFC showdowns are still yet to happen. So the topic of today's rant isn't whether I think we'll see the Chiefs or the Ravens come out on top, or the 49ers or the Lions. The topic of today's rant is about what I feel is quickly becoming an American tradition that you can almost set your watch to, and that tradition is watching the Bills lose to the Chiefs in the playoffs every single year.
The Bills make me wanna shout, kick your heels up and shout, throw your hands up and shout, throw your head back and shout, come on now.
Now, I can't say that I'm surprised. Earlier in the season, last fall, I ranted about the Buffalo Bills here on the Fort Erie podcast. I made the case that the Bills are going to have to let go of good in pursuit of great if they want a real chance of playing in the big game one day soon. And partway through the season, I got a little worried I might have to eat my words because, the Bills were starting to turn things around, but I should have stuck to my guns. I mean, I really thought for a moment there the Bills might be heading to Vegas for Super Bowl 58, but of course there was nothing to worry about because a team that makes the same mistakes over and over and over again is destined to achieve the same results over and over again. So let's recap the Bills and Chiefs matchup from January 21st, the final couple of minutes. There's a minute 40 something left in the fourth quarter. Tyler Bass misses the field goal kick. He kicks it so far right that it hits Maxim Bernier. Little political humor for you. But anyway, that field goal, had his kick been successful, that would have tied the game up at 27, would have given Buffalo the chance to take the lead in possible overtime. And it's a tough spot in the history books for Tyler Bass, being remembered, at least for this season, the 23-24 season, as the guy who cost the Bills a shot at the Super Bowl after missing a 44-yard field goal, and not just missing it by a little bit, missing it by a lot. Of course, he misses the kick and the Chiefs stroll to victory 27-24. I was following along, the real-time updates on social media as this happened, and people were upset, calling for Tyler Bass to be fired. I mean, people were out with their pitchforks. Bills Mafia is not going to be soon to forget this missed kick, I should say. But I, for one, don't rest or put the blame squarely on Tyler Bass's shoulders. I don't think that's fair because in fairness, the Chiefs did an excellent job throughout almost the entire game of shutting down the Bills' offense, particularly Buffalo's running plays. Did not get far with a lot of running plays in this matchup. Josh Allen, I've said this before, I'll say it again, is somebody who has unlimited amounts of sheer talent. He's got talent, he's got size, he's got speed, but he squanders what he has in those arenas, sullies it with inconsistent performances, questionable play decisions, leaving receivers wide open on the field and easy first down territory in favor of throwing unlikely distances to the end zone. The Bills make me want to shout. There's no question about that, but not because Tyler Bass missed a field goal. Because a more effective Buffalo offense would have never let it become a 3-point game in the first place. Look, everybody knows that football is a game of inches. It always has been. I mean, it's nice that, in that game, Josh Allen threw for 189 yards. But somebody maybe ought to remind Josh next season, hey, dude, you don't have to throw those 189 yards in 2 or 3 plays. You can spread them out a little bit. There's an old adage, I'm going to butcher it, but it's an old adage about journalism. And it goes that it's more important to favor accuracy than speed. In other words, it's more important when you publish a story that you got the story right than you got it out fast. And somebody maybe ought to have that conversation with Josh Allen and Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator. A more disciplined Buffalo offense would have had a real shot, in my opinion, a real shot at defeating Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. But instead, Bills Mafia is making a scapegoat of Tyler Bass. When it's the inconsistency of players like Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs in that playoff series that brought Bass out on the field in the first place.
The Bills make me wanna shout.
Fort Erie Questions and Answers, based on the Facebook group by the same name.
This is Fort Erie Questions and Answers. It's the part of the show where I go through the Facebook group by the same name and pick out any questions and answers that I thought were especially interesting, amusing, or helpful. Let's start with this one. Natalie says, my toaster oven has broke down. Anybody know of a small appliance repair person in the area? Well, sad to say, but the most common response that came up in the comments was, buy a new one. In fact, one person said they don't even make internal parts to repair them because it's cheaper to replace. And that tends to be the case with a lot of appliances. I had a dishwasher where the pump broke on it, and the cost to replace the pump was greater than buying a new dishwasher. So nothing is made to last. Unfortunately, Natalie, you might have to look at replacing your toaster oven. One person did recommend going to Goodwill in the comments. They said you can get a used toaster oven there for $15. Teresa asks, are there any ski hills close by? Well, locals know these two answers that came up more than any others, Kissing Bridge and Holiday Valley in Ellicottville. Both great answers. Are both about an hour away into New York State. One person, I guess just joking here, said Sugar Bowl Park, talking about the hill there where kids go tobogganing. They made sure to point out that Sugar Bowl has no lift. However, you're going to have to climb your way back up to the top. Angie asks, can anyone tell me if you can still get an ultrasound at Douglas Memorial Hospital? And the resounding answer is yes. Yes, they still do ultrasounds at Douglas Memorial. Jill asks, does anyone know where I can buy feeder fish in Fort Erie for my turtle? Quite a few people in the comments mentioned Ruffin's, the pet store, but that point was refuted a couple of times. Yes, Ruffin's sells fish, but not feeder fish per se. Fish that you are supposed to keep as pets, not feed to your turtle. I don't know how the distinction is made between which fish are feeder fish, but I guess Ruffin's does. Anyway, the most common answer, the best answer that came up was Dominion Bait at 1881 Dominion Road. You can buy minnows there as well as worms, both of which turtles will eat. Heather asks, where can I go to send a fax? And the comment with the most reactions was somebody who said 1994. That's probably right. Heather, who are you sending a fax to? I have no idea. My fax number is on my business card. I don't know how many times a year somebody ever sends a fax, though. But anyway, Heather wants to send a fax. So the most common responses, the best answers were Avondale Stores, Beatty's, as well as Fort Erie Public Library.
The Fort Erie Podcast.
Earlier in today's episode, when we went through the Byrd Box messages, one caller called in, left a message saying that she was disappointed with the Tim Hortons cinnamon sugar twist, that she ordered one. It had no cinnamon, no sugar, no cinnamon sugar. There was just a twist. So I thought I'd get to the bottom of this. I went to Tim's earlier, the location at Central and Garrison. I ordered one of these retro cinnamon sugar twists. So I've got it in front of me here. I'm going to give you my live food review. So let me just pull it out of the bag. Yeah, there's a ton. I'm not sure what this caller is talking about. I mean, this one that I got, at least, there's tons of cinnamon sugar on here. I mean, it's just pulling out of the bag. I mean, it's made a mess all over my desk. There's a ton of it on here. Let me give it a try. I don't know. All right. Yeah, there's a ton of cinnamon sugar on here. God, thing's dry though, man. Oh my God. It is a dry, doughy, awful experience. If you like cinnamon sugar, there's lots of cinnamon sugar. Oh my God, I got to put this away somewhere. This is terrible. There's tons of cinnamon sugar on the one I got. But honestly, oh my God, it's so dry. I'd rather have an old-fashioned plain, if I'm being honest, because not good, man. You need something to wash this down with. Oh my God. This is terrible. 0 out of 10. I'm going to finish this one because I paid for it. So I'm going to finish it out of gluttony. Would never order again. Anyway, that's our show for today. As a reminder, it's been the theme this whole episode. Please give generously to Coldest Night of the Year. You can donate, via my team, or Mark's team. It really doesn't matter. Me, ideally, but it could be Chief Schmitt's team as well. The URL, if you want to donate to Coldest Night of the Year, you want to donate through my team, like my team's link online. I've created a short link for it just to make it easy. It's my website, buywithbrent.ca, BUY with Brent.ca /CNOY, as in Coldest Night of Year, CNOY, buywithbrent.ca/CNOY. As a matter of fact, bit of good news, in a strange turn of events, Regional Councillor Tom Encina, he donated to my campaign. You'll actually see him on my list of donors. If you go over to that page, if you click on my name, our regional councillor donated to my Coldest Night of the Year campaign. And regular listeners of this show know that's a bit of an unlikely story. That's why I say strange turn of events. But hey, money is money. I'm happy for the donation if you're listening, and I'm pretty sure you are. Thank you, Mr. Encina. I appreciate you being so generous, even after the electric scooter debacle of last year. Anyway, you can donate any amount you want. Coldest Night of the Year, big or small. All funds go to the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie. You can come out and walk with us on February 24th if you want. And quick reminder, check your smoke alarms, check your carbon monoxide detectors, make sure they're working. You could save your family's life. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Get your Byrd Box messages in. Any topic, 24 hours a day, 289-599-BYRD. And I will catch you next Tuesday for a brand new episode of the Fort Erie Podcast.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or visit theforteriepodcast.com.